All right, let's jump into this.
All right, I'll count you down. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Ben and MK's Untitled Sports Pod Ballcast.
Our latest haphazard entry.
Yes, it only took us 2 weeks this time.
That is progress.
So that's progress. Yes. But anyway, so we're here. We're trying. Episode number 3. Let's get into this. The most important news story weighing on my mind is my poor baby Skabooboo is out for the season. Cam Scatabo with a, quote, gruesome ankle injury.
Yeah.
And, like, I was like, okay, it's his ankle. That's not great, but, like, it couldn't be that bad. And then I noticed, like, a lot of the news articles were not showing the video. Like, they were specifically saying, we have chosen not to show the video. And I was like, how bad could this ankle injury be that they are choosing not to share the video? And then I went and watched the video.
And the answer was bad.
The answer is bad. His foot was pointing in the entirely wrong direction.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sad because, like, I just discovered this guy, fell in love with him. One, because he's my favorite kind of player, which is the kind who just runs through people. And two, because he's an absolute dork. Because, of course, the thing that I get shown the most because of how algorithms work is, like, the silly stuff, especially, like, his absolute bromance with Jackson Dart. And how adorable these two are. So, like, I have instantly fallen in love with this man. And then, like, 2 weeks later, he's hurt and out for the season. And I am sad. And he's not even on my team.
And I think, like we talked about, it's just somebody who's fun to watch and, much less a personality. But, like, also just, it's hard not to just enjoy watching someone play just... playing fullback style running football where I'm not trying to run around you. I am trying to run through you. I think it's just easy to like that guy unless he's going against your team. Oop, did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Sorry, I got slightly distracted.
Oh, no.
I'm here. I'm listening. Keep going.
No, you're good. I just plugged something in, so I was worried it caused the computer to explode.
Oh, okay. Then I definitely didn't get distracted.
No, and I think that's just it. Like, unless you've got a dog in the fight against him, it's you want to have characters like that. You want to have guys that are just running through people. That's entertaining and all that. And I think sometimes we get lost in trying to analyze or think piece everything to not be like, no, some things are just fun. Like, and much less that he was actually doing pretty good, but like also just, it's just fun to watch. He's fun to watch, and I'm sad we're going to miss him until next year.
Yeah. And I have a half-baked thought that I'm going to expound upon in the future when I figure it out a little more intelligently. But I was kind of thinking about how, like, football in general is more fun when you look at it as a whole. Like, instead of just focusing on your team, which can lead to a lot of, like, at least for me, a lot of, like, depression and, like, threatening suicide and all of that. Like, instead of just being, solely invested in one team, which is not, like, an invalid way to be a fan. But if you kind of think of it as, like, if you kind of look at the NFL in the same way as, like, the MCU, like, there's all of these different characters and they all are, like, different cogs in this whole machine, and you start looking at, like, the NFL as your favorite film franchise almost. Like, there's, like, an additional layer of enjoyment that I have found beyond just how each team is performing.
I think I think it's really prevalent, especially in, like, NBA basketball fandom, in the sense of you get a little bit more of guys who are, or people that are fans of players more than teams. And I think both are valid. I think it's just always like, I think it's more fun to have a team sometimes in the sense of, the emotional highs and lows of it. Because I think some people take the favorite player thing to an extreme to where it's like, no, this is just front running disguised as liking the best basketball player or something. Like, I think I think it's a mix. Like, I feel like with you, it's always going to be like your jokes are going to be Washington based, but like you can appreciate the whole league, and I think that's the difference. Is are you just trying to appreciate everything and can like your team in context? Because like I joked with you, like no, my hatred for the Packers overrides everything. So, and I think that's the thing is, I think it's
they made my night last night.
Yes, they did.
Though.
And
we'll get to that.
And I think it's the thing is just enjoying it. Because I think some people get so tied up in a team you can't even have a football conversation with them because it's so team centric as opposed to I want my Bears to win every week, but I can both laugh at their mishaps and be depressed about them, but at the same time, like I can appreciate even the other team on the other side of the ball just being able to get the job done or taking advantage of the weaknesses. Like I think that just it makes you a better fan of your own team in some ways when you can take a step away and think about it a little bit. I mean, like I'm still going to be rabidly doggedly about the Bears, but I can step back and be like, yeah, we have problems, and not just in the woe is us sort of way.
Yeah. Like, I'm certainly not saying, like, focusing on a team is the wrong way to do it, or even focusing on certain players is the wrong way. I do think it's a little bit easier to be a fan of specific players in the NBA, just because, like, there are fewer guys on the court at a time.
Yeah. What? And I think
because like in basketball, like there's 10 guys on the court at any given time. Like, you might be able to like memorize the entire lineup pretty easily. Obviously there are people who memorize football lineups. Like, I am not discounting those weirdos. Love that kind of weirdo. I do think, but at the same time, I also kind of dislike that where it's like, that guy is part of a team. Like, he couldn't be as good as he is if he didn't have those other guys. And, like, so, like, I think there's a balance.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's going to have their favorite players. But sometimes, definitely more so in basketball, but it also happens in football where it's like, we spend so much time talking about this one guy and forget that, like, there are other guys who make him look so good. Like, I think part of the reason we hear about a quarterback's name so often is because there's only one quarterback at a time. So it's really easy to name him and remember his name. But I also think quarterbacks get more credit than they deserve sometimes.
I think,
like, yeah, he's throwing the ball, but somebody had to catch it.
Well, I think it's always a tough thing is I think we both mistake that a quarterback will fix all your problems, but also if you don't have a quarterback, you have all the problems. Like, I think it's the problem where, like, I don't know how good Daniel Jones actually is, but the Colts are very good right now. And I think it's more important that they have a competent quarterback than whether he's great or anything. The fact that they have someone there that can do the job, not make mistakes, and is like, I think that goes a long way. And I think we make the mistake of both overemphasizing the great quarterbacks and also forgetting that sometimes you just need a good quarterback. Like, obviously someone like Mahomes can do things that only Mahomes does, but like, a lot of teams' problems could be solved by actually trusting and knowing what their quarterback situation is going to be for the next 5 years. Like, that's now what's happened with the Colts. Like, regardless of Anthony Richardson and how that draft pick works out for them, they know that they have stability in Daniel Jones. They can draft receivers. They don't have to think, do we need to trade up to 1-1 and get whoever the top quarterback is in the draft? I just think it's almost a paradox because the quarterback is so important, but I think also at the same time, if you plug these young quarterbacks into bad teams, guess what? I forget what the stat is, but basically the number of coaches that have gotten fired after getting the top quarterback in the draft is pretty high percentage. And I think it's just simply because usually these organizations have a million problems. It's not that, oh, we just haven't got that QB yet. It's we haven't built a team in general, and we don't have a QB either. Like I said, I think it's a paradox because you have to have a good QB, but generally these organizations don't build teams that are even decent, and that's why they're drafting first overall and drafting a top flight QB, and then they ruin him because when you spend the entire game running for your life, some of your skills tend to depreciate over time.
Yeah, and I think Patrick Mahomes is a good example of if you look at the league, if you become a fan of the league as a whole, as opposed to just being focused on one team. Like, I don't really give a shit about the Chiefs at all. I am tired of hearing Travis Kelce's name. And you know what? If Patrick Mahomes wasn't such an adorable little... I would be super tired of hearing his name too, because I feel like it is constant that I am hearing about this kid. But he seems like a sweetheart, I enjoy seeing him. I hope he's not the kind of asshole that we talked about in our chat last night.
Well, I think that's the thing is, if nothing else, he doesn't put himself out there too much. I mean, obviously as the face of the NFL, he's out there, but I think he just also doesn't, and I think it's a conscious choice, but I don't think he wants himself to be controversial. And he seems pretty down to earth in a lot of ways. So I think it's just harder to hate him other than just if you're tired of hearing of him, which I think to me, it's two different things. And also I think it's a problem of sometimes it's easy to talk about him. So a lot of people do, but it's one of those things that I'm fine if you want to talk about him, actually it's him, and not just you're tired of hearing about the most popular player in football. Because I get it, because it does get repetitive when people can only essentially regurgitate three thoughts. But at the same time, I've never seen a quarterback as good as Patrick Mahomes. He will be the greatest of all time as long as he wins a few more Super Bowls. I've seen a lot of good QBs. I've never seen a QB sideways throwing a dart to his tight end near the end zone and him dropping it. Mahomes has almost been more impressive in his Super Bowl losses because the teams he were on were so clearly flawed that they got dominated in the Super Bowl. And I don't think it had a ton to do with him. But I think that's the problem is if you're a hater, it's just haha, Mahomes sucked in the Super Bowl. It's well, yeah, he did, but he was running for his life. And guess what? Every QB sucks when they're running for their life. Like I said, it's just, if you want to have a nuanced conversation, yeah, but also, that's also why I like having players that we just like, whether it's Scadaboo, whether it's Cooper DeJean, our great white hope, playing secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles, or don't forget Riley Moss with the Broncos in that regard either. But I think that's why I prefer to have fun conversations than to actually argue with people. I'd rather hear about why you like something than hear your million reasons why you hate so-and-so. Unless you,
oh my God.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have had this opinion for well over a decade now. Cause you and I are both of the same age of in our youth, the angry critic became the only way to criticize anything or to critique anything.
Yeah.
CinemaSins did more to damage media literacy than a lot of things, but that is a rant for another day. But I have gotten so sick of the only way we can talk about any kind of media is to just shit on it. Just to tear it apart, because apparently the only way to be smart and thoughtful, or to appear smart and thoughtful about media of any kind, whether it's music, movies, sports, whatever, is to just be angry and critical and nasty.
And
And like, so I haven't started doing it yet, but like as part of the greater Project MK Ultra, one of the things that I want to do is do like dabble in some book talk. And like, I promised myself I am not going to do any negative reviews. I don't really want to do reviews at all. Like, I only want to talk about things that I like. Because there's enough people shitting on things, and like, I don't know. Like, I got tired of the angry critic so long ago that like sorry, you just like really struck a nerve that I have held on to for a long time.
No. Like,
but I totally agree. Like, and I think sports is an area where it is very easy to get into the like super nasty, angry, critical thing.
Well,
because like there is like a built-in tribalism.
Oh yeah.
Like,
well, no, I agree with you, because that was one thing I said I wanted to, when we started, was just to focus on the fun, because, like you said, and I guess it's the thing too. It's my problem is if the being angry is the only part of the gimmick, like, and also it's the difference to me between just being angry and almost a cynic, in the sense of, to me, a cynic is a romantic at heart, but it's just disappointed by what's out there. Whereas, like, if you're always angry, it's like it doesn't seem like you have any appreciation for anything. I guess that's when we get those just constantly angry reviews, or, I guess in sports, kind of the first takeification.
Do you find joy in anything?
Exactly. And that's kind of my thing, is like,
and like, sure, I enjoy like going on rants about things that I dislike. I've kind of done it in this conversation. Like,
well, that's it.
And like,
I think it's
I think there are some movies that I have nothing good to say about, like, but like, for the most part, I think it's more fun to hear about why someone likes something.
Well, about saying that's it for me. It's that, like, and it also makes, when you do have an angry rant, like, actually mean something. Like, I mean, it's almost like the way they used Lewis Black on The Daily Show. His stick kind of gets old if it's only him. Even though I actually did enjoy his stand-up routine when I saw it once, mainly because he's very talented and charming, actually. But if it's pure angry Lewis Black the whole time, you're probably gonna hate it, because, I mean, it's all Veritol or whatever. But
Vitriol.
Yeah, Vitriol. There's what?
Okay.
There's West Virginian in me coming out. But point being is that's why you only deploy him occasionally on The Daily Show back in the day. Was it's charming and funny when he comes in and it's just angry, as opposed
because if you hate everything, like, it kind of loses its impact of like you hate everything.
Yeah.
What are you telling me?
Well, that's it.
You're not telling me any new information.
I mean, that's why, like, to a certain extent, like, I'll just send like clips, NBA wise, of Victor Wembanyama to my dad, because, like, not that me and him don't get along or something, but like sometimes we'll just like spar verbally over sports or anything else. But I send him those clips because it's just like, yeah, this guy is 7'3", 4, 5 or whatever, and doing crazy things. There's no real analysis other than, I've not seen this before, and I don't think we'll ever see it again.
Yeah, no, like, so...
and it's fun to watch.
You, personally, like, literally just my conversations with you are, like, drastically affecting my algorithms, because, like, you mentioned Wemby once, and then, like, suddenly my Facebook feed is filled with, like, Wemby stories.
Well,
So, and I don't know if it was the video you sent me, or if it was a video that showed up in my feed of, like, him being so crazy tall, and just, like, is it even a dunk if you don't have to leave the ground and you can just, like, reach up and put it in the basket? Like, he looked like an adult playing against children on a Little Tykes hoop. Like, it was wild.
I'll direct this back to football in a second, but
okay.
Quickly, they actually showed the stat, or I saw somebody put it on Twitter, that his vertical leap on those dunks is only about a foot, because he doesn't have to jump any higher. Like, LeBron actually, even at 6'8" or whatever he is, actually has to get some verticality, to get to the rim.
Because the rims are what? 9 feet?
10 feet.
10 feet. Okay.
So Wemby with his...
So, like, even super tall dudes have to, like...
Yeah, you're...
leap a little.
You're looking more at, like, jumping maybe 24 inches, per se. Mm-hmm. Where Wemby can just... I'm just going to do a little hop.
Yeah.
But I guess that gets being said, like, that's why sometimes I just like to talk about, like, the guys that are just kind of physically... outliers like in the NFL. Like Jonathan Ogden was 6'10" and ran like a decent 40 for the Ravens back in the day. And sometimes like when talking about linemen, because I want to be like, there was a clip, I forget who was picking him up the other day, but it was somebody picking up Blake Griffin, and he made the comment of, that's probably the first time I've been dangling by my feet, in years. And to the point of, I think sometimes we just forget, like, as these athletes are that exceptional, like just in the sense of that is some dude that is 6'5" or 7 or something and incredibly strong. And no, that is not like anything in your daily life. Like in a great way, that is just an outlier of a human being.
Yeah, it's kind of like that picture of The Rock standing next to Shaq. And you're like, yeah, The Rock's a pretty big dude, but like next to Shaq, he looks downright small. I think The Rock is like 6'3" or something.
Yeah,
but Shaq being over 7 feet tall, it's like how do humans come in such a variety that they can be as tiny as Simone Biles and as large as like guys like Wemby? Like how are you the same species?
And I'll quickly say my favorite genre of that was around the Olympics. It was Simone Biles with NBA players. Because they're both two of the best.
She's like, what, to their knees?
Yeah, and plus it's funny because they're both two of the best athletes in the world, in the top like 1,000 or so athletes in the world. Yet one is 5 foot maybe, and the other one's 7 foot, and like usually like pretty broad too. But it's like, no, one of these is actually the best athlete in their sport. This other one's just pretty good or very good, but. But like the tiny woman there in the photo is actually in some ways the superior athlete.
One of the greatest athletes who have ever lived ever.
Yeah. I'm about saying, and I think that's one reason I like her too, is just she just seems to appreciate sports in general, and and I think she like kind of leaned into some stuff like that in the sense of it's like, yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm these basketball players want to meet me, and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, she's earned all that. There's no question. But like, just the picture of a 5 foot tall woman beside a 7'2" man, and like the Shaq is essentially in all of Simone Biles.
Yeah. No, I do love Simone. Like, I will be devastated if I ever find out like she's secretly a horrible person.
The only thing horrible you might feel towards her is she is in a relationship with a Bears player.
Mm.
Yep, see,
I
it's all downhill for here for you. It was all going great.
I don't have any ill will towards the Bears. They're just not mine. You know what I mean? All right. All right, so you have a couple other news items here. The Vikings losing Carson Wentz for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he apparently tore his shoulder, and it looked like something was going on during the game, but I mean, I'm obviously not a doctor or anything like that, so I'm always hesitant to say anything, but...
No, and even the announcers could tell, like, yeah, his shoulder is not doing great, like, because he kept grabbing it and kept, like, trying to flex it, like, it was clear during the game he was hurting.
My Vikings fan sent, my Vikings fan friend
there you
sent shoulder dislocation that tore the labrum and fractured the socket.
Oh!
He also commented, does not sound like a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad time.
Yeah, so, and I get that they're trying to keep JJ McCarthy, out as long as they can to get him healthy. Obviously they want him back as soon as they can, but they're trying to get him healthy too. But yeah, I guess that makes really that game really uncomfortable, knowing all that now is going on, and they're just like, yeah, keep going out there. We're not going to bring JJ back yet. Go keep losing your arm. But yeah, that's really all I have on that.
You want to touch on those trade rumors you have mentioned here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant to really touch or not touch, but believe that any of them are going to happen because the NFL trade deadline does not work like the NBA one. But at the same time, unless the Bengals think that Burrow is going to be back in time to make the playoffs this season, I wouldn't be shocked if they move on from Trey Henderson just because they're cheap and that situation has obviously not produced the resolution they were going for. But I mean, that's kind of the theme with all of these, the ones that I listed. Jalen Waddle. Oh, go ahead.
The names that you have listed here, I only like vaguely recognize. So tell me, like, let's go over who they are and like.
Well, let's say I was going to Trey Henderson, defensive lineman for the Bengals.
Okay, you have Hendrickson here.
Yes.
Is it Hendrickson or Henderson?
Okay, now you've got no. I think it's Hendrickson. Now you've got me thinking.
Okay, listen. The reason I was making a weird face into the camera is because you wrote Hendrickson here, and I was like, wait, is that the guy that I mentioned before in later in this document? And I actually mentioned Hawkinson, which is a thing we'll talk about later. So we're both kind of fucking up with names right now.
No, it is Trey Hendrickson.
Okay.
like that. But I was going to say that's the theme with all the guys that actually seem to be around, and it's not a surprise. But Jalen Waddle, Miami wide receiver, things aren't going well there with Tua or anything, and just their record overall. It seems like McDaniel's time as coach there is also coming to an end. The Jets are the Jets, so I can kind of understand why Breece Hall is on there as a running back. And same thing with Chris Olave and the Saints, a wide receiver. Those are just teams that they seem adrift more than anything, and you don't really see tanking in the NFL the same way you do in the NBA. But there's just a certain point where you do, as a franchise, have to ask, are we really going to be a better team that just, maybe has a good player on it, or do we just try to pick up some draft picks and, look at next year, look at the next 2 or 3 years? And I think that's really what we're seeing at all of these, other than maybe Hendrickson, just because the Bengals always feel like they're a playoff threat as long as Joe Burrow's around. That said, I'll be surprised if any of these guys move, just because the NFL is much more conservative as far as trades and all that. But all of them would make sense. I'll definitely say that.
I have this crazy radical opinion that you should not be allowed to make trades during the season. I think, your roster on day one should be your roster through the whole season. Like, obviously, if somebody gets, hurt, you can bring somebody up. But, I don't think you should be trading people during the season. Because, I feel like a team doesn't mean anything if you're making trades, during it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I would say I think that's why the NFL is inherently a bit more conservative in its trade deadline. I think that there's a little bit more that goes into it than just plugging and play. Yeah, plug and playing a player. I think that generally, especially the higher end guys, you've probably somewhat built your defense around or offense around these guys. So the idea of trading them is not just that, you're trading them within the season and all the chemistry issues that come with that, but also if you've got a, stud at a defensive end, you can, maybe save a little bit money elsewhere on the line. So I think that's the thing too, is if you're getting rid of these guys through trade, you're also probably not just weakening your team, but you probably don't have a team built to not have a star player, at one of these positions, because that's how you've tried to construct your roster.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, about that, we'll see if any of them move. I don't think they will.
Also, we only have like 1 week's worth of games on this list. But anyway, so let's start talking about the games that we watch, and I'll pull up the schedule for this week.
Well, I was about to say, just last week, I thought it was interesting the Bengals being the Steelers, especially now that they've actually lost 2 in a row. But
in the Old Man Bowl.
Yes, Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers, I believe, were the oldest quarterback matchup in NFL history. I would need to double check that, but it was definitely up there.
Yeah. I couldn't remember if they said it was the oldest or like second oldest or something.
But yeah, I think we saw in that game and in their loss last night, it just seems that if things are going their way, they are very good at being on time and controlling when they can control the game, they will win the game. And I mean, I know that's kind of basic, but I think some teams have the ability to, handle adversity better, and it doesn't really matter if they get off their game script or something like that. They'll find a way around it. It seems like in these games last week and this week, once the Bengals started to get a little bit going, it just became a bigger and bigger problem for the Steelers. It didn't seem like they could adjust to what Joe Flacco was doing. Threw for 3 touchdowns and 342 yards, but yeah, it helps having Higgins and Chase, but it just seemed like the Steelers had no way to counter what was going on, despite the fact that Flacco really was just throwing it to Jamar Chase the whole entire game, it felt like.
Yeah. I didn't really have a whole lot to say about that game overall, other than I liked the outcome in that Aaron Rodgers lost.
The fair.
It's not even about the Steelers. I don't hate the Steelers. I just hate Aaron Rodgers. One day we'll go into why, but not tonight.
I'd say that could be its own episode or whatnot.
It might be its own episode. I just went through this whole thing about how I much prefer hearing about why you like something, but I don't know. Maybe if we get enough Patreon donations or something, I will make the presentation as to why I hate Aaron Rodgers. And not to totally rehash the conversation that you and I had last night about the kind of people or the kind of thing that makes me hate a person and why I hate a person. I will at least say Aaron Rodgers is the kind of hate that is fun to have, whereas Deshaun Watson is I hate that guy, but not in a fun way. That guy just sucks.
Yeah, I'm about to say I take issue with a couple things with Aaron Rodgers, but ultimately he could be someone that if he was in your group of friends or a friend of a friend, you might shrug your shoulders and move on or whatever. Whereas Deshaun Watson is just, by what we seem to know publicly, not a good person, period. There's not even a tinge of, it's just no, that's
yeah, one involves actual crimes.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Whereas the other is just personal beef.
Yeah, I'm about to say one's annoying at worst, misguided, or somewhat damaging. But it's my general feeling with things like that. It ultimately comes down to Aaron Rodgers says things that bother me. Deshaun Watson does things that bother me, and
right, and and of course, there are levels and steps and nuances and stuff, and we don't need to jump into all of that tonight. Yeah. So, I don't know. If you want to hear my, TED Talk about why Aaron Rodgers sucks, donate to the Patreon.
That's it.
We missed one game before the Old Man Bowl that we have listed here, and arguably it's one of the most important to this podcast because it was the Bears versus the Commanders. And the Commanders were very disappointing that night.
See, I'm already back in sad Bears fan mode after they lost this week, but I think that's the thing is, one, I kind of think, and I mentioned before, Washington's, I hate to say overrated, but I think the way last season played out kind of gave outsized expectations that the roster and everything else should give you. Like, it's great that they made the conference championship game. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But when that is the level of success that you expect the next year, but you don't have a roster that supports that. I mean, I guess that's the thing is no one thought they were going to get that far last year, and it's great they did. But also at the same time, that's exactly why maybe people should have, pulled back on the reins on expectations for the Commanders this year, because they probably shouldn't have got that far, but it's great they did. And I think too, both for the Bears and Washington, that was kind of the thing. They did make a couple mistakes that let the Bears get back in it. And as much as I enjoyed watching the Bears win, much less on a Monday night, I mean, it was hard not to look at that fumble with Jaden Daniels late in the game. And also, there's games you win because you're the better team or you played really well. And then there's games that you just feel like you snuck out of it with a win, not that you really were the main reason you won the game.
Mm-hmm.
As a Commanders fan,
yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot to say about that game other than just the Commanders disappointed me.
And I will say, just as a Commanders fan, I guess where do you sit now in this season that it's kind of apparent that they aren't going to be the Commanders of last year, but Jane Daniels is young. There's a million reasons to be positive looking ahead, but currently it doesn't feel like it would be a good time to be a Commanders fan other than the bright spots here and there.
Yeah, like, we're not what we were last year. But I don't think it's like all hope is lost. That we're going back to the reputation of yore, where it was like, wow, this is the worst team, just the worst team in the league.
Well, I think we spoke about it before, that I think that's the thing with Washington right now is the general feeling is they are headed the right direction. This season is growing pains, and on a lot of levels, that's okay. Like, that should have been the expectation coming in. Also, just with having an older roster that was going to begin to show that age at some point.
And there's been like several injuries so far.
Yeah, and I think
wasn't it like, I think it was like 3 linemen were out for a game like 2 weeks ago. So I'm sure there's been more injuries since then. To kind of follow up on the point I made in the last episode about like not having super intelligent thoughts because I have been in the midst of depression, like I still am not super on top of everything, but like I am paying more attention. So like even my own team, I'm not fully caught up on like, all right, who's been injured, where are we at right now? Anyway, so that Eagles and Vikings game.
Tell me why Hawkinson's incomplete TD bothered you so much.
I don't understand why it was overruled. Like,
okay, that was.
How did he not have control of it? He was laying on top of it.
But I would say that my issue is, I think they probably shouldn't have overturned the call, because watching it to me it looked like that he gets his hands above the ball and does have a grip on it, but when he hits the ground, you can kind of see that his arms shift and that he's trying to get control of it again.
Like, it kind of looked to me like his hands came off of it when he hit the ground.
But yeah, that would be
But either way, it was under him. Like, how do you argue that he does not have possession of it if it is under his body? I
think the important thing there is if he has his hands under it, you make the argument that he's in control of it, and that's a catch. Like, because that's how the rule is now, since the Bears got really lucky on a Calvin Johnson touchdown that got called off because he didn't control it through the ground. That was the thing, is I think that was the problem, was his hands were above it, so when the ball moves, you kind of know that he didn't have control of it at that point. Where if it's under him, and even if he jostles it and it's under him, you can make the argument, well, he's in possession of it. And I think that's the thing, is when it moves and your hands are more on top of it, it's a lot harder to argue that you're in control of it. I'd say that was kind of my takeaway. Is I don't think he caught it, but the fact that they called it a touchdown, I don't think there was such a great angle that I felt like you could see his arms moving, but you never got a great shot of the ball that really said to me that it definitely was out of his control, even though I definitely believe he lost control of it.
Right. And it was less about, like, his incomplete touchdown specifically so much as, like, I feel like I've seen several touchdowns this year that either should not have counted because it seemed like the opposite of this kind of situation to me, or ones that were similar to this where, like, it seemed like that absolutely should have been a touchdown, but it was considered incomplete or whatever because of XYZ reasons. And, like, I think I just want to do, like a hyper-specific deep dive episode about, like, the rules for what counts as a touchdown. Because, like, I feel like there's probably some, like, specifics that I need to understand.
But
what counts as possession versus what counts as controlling it versus what counts as, like, in the end zone versus out of bounds. Because, like...
Then we get to talk about the fun thing of you basically... It's like the end zone line extends out of bounds if you're diving for the pylon, but, anywhere else, it would just be out of bounds. But we see plenty of times, players get hit at the pylon, and maybe it does or doesn't go over it, but it feels like we just generally accept that, like, the goal line is infinite in some ways. But that's also why in rugby you actually have to touch the football on the ground, because then that's the whole reason it's called a touchdown.
Yeah, so, like, on the line. Is on the line in or out?
Like the breaking the plane, like, of the end zone?
Maybe?
Yeah, like, as soon as it touches the
line...
line...
Like, I know the sides very clearly, like, the line seems to be out.
Yeah, I'm about to say, as long as the football breaks the plane of where the line is in the end zone, it's considered a touchdown. So... That's why, and so that's the thing is, as soon as the tip of the ball goes over the goal line, it's a touchdown, and just end of story. Whereas, I think that's the funny thing with the pylon sometimes is I don't even know if it really goes over the pylon, but the guy runs with the ball on his right hand and kind of runs right over the pylon, and it probably didn't actually go in the end zone, but we just run with it, basically.
Yeah, so I think that might be a fun one to do, like, maybe on the off season or something when we have a chance to, like, gather clips that we can, like, get granular about.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, I played volleyball in school, and it was very simple. The line is in. That ball lands on the line, it counts as a point, because it, or, depending on whose ball it was.
This off season, we'll talk about how the heel is a heel can be out of bounds, but you can drag your toes and stay in bounds.
Yeah, see, and that's the sort of thing. Like, it seems like there's some really silly specifications where, like, if your knee was down, it counts for this, but it doesn't.
One knee equals 2 feet, but your feet do not. Yes. Basically, the rule is I would need to double check, but my understanding is your feet are your feet, but you have to get both of them down in bounds. But if you land on, say, your hip or your butt or your knee, that just counts as in at that point, as long as you have control of the ball or whatnot. Yeah, I think the way we'll set up that episode is I will pull up a bunch of tape, and I'll ask you to make the call, and then we'll either tell people why you're right or wrong, depending on, like, the absurdity of the rule.
We'll definitely have to do that after we have, like, video capability, and we can make, like, a whole, like, game show out of it.
Yes. And I'll say, I think...
So donate to the Patreon so we can afford better meeting software than fighting with the time limits of Zoom.
There we go. But yeah,
link will be in the description.
And I just quickly want to hit on two of the other games. Like, it annoyed me in the Broncos-Giants game that Sean Payton, who I'd like to note was the coach during Bountygate with the Saints, where one of their defensive coach, made the quote, if you if you kill the head, the body will die. Basically saying to give opponents concussions. But that being said,
That was so violent.
Yes, yeah, Sean Payton, that was that was Greg Williams, his defensive coordinator. But I kind of feel like your coach probably knows what's going on there. But that being said, what actually bothered me with that game was Sean Payton lost it after a pass interference call, and it was maybe a little questionable. But if there was any chance of it being overturned, it wouldn't have mattered because he ended up getting a I forget what the exact penalty was, but he got a penalty called on him that gave the Giants a first down, and it ended up not mattering because Bo Nix delivered late and the Broncos were able to get a field goal. But just watching a coach get a penalty like that just seems so stupid, and especially when you're supposed to be the leader, it's like that's always my thing to me is like, yeah, you're human and all that, but if you're the leader in some way, there's certain expectations of your behavior, and I don't know how you tell your players to like keep their cool when you run down to the goal line and get a penalty called on you because you didn't like a pass interference call. I mean, it just seemed ridiculous, and I just don't like Sean Payton, and that could have cost them the game. Dart scored, then the Giants scored after that, but the Giants, being the Giant, allowed the Broncos back in the game, and that was that. And just your coach shouldn't be the reason you almost lose the game. Not because there's play calling, but because of something dumb he did. Like, play calling's one thing, dumb things, no. And go ahead.
I don't know if I just blacked out while you were saying all of that, but what was the gaff?
Oh, he ran down to the end zone and was arguing the pass interference call. So it ended up being a first down just off of that. Like, it didn't matter at that point that the pass interference call had even happened. He, before the refs even got done conferencing on that pass interference call, ran down there to argue it and got a penalty called against him because he was outside of the, I think it's the 35 to 35 is essentially the area where teams can walk between, and the coach can essentially walk down the sideline in those areas. And he ran down to the goal line, which it's one of those situations you're going to get a flag called on you 99% of the time because it's just such an obvious, breaking of the rules. Like, it's not like he just came down to the 20 and was maybe like that. I would be like, yeah, I don't call the penalty on a coach for that. That's just a little bit too much. But run down the goal line, you're just saying please call a penalty on me. And in a situation where it led to points that could have cost the Packers, the Broncos a game, it was so stupid. And I mean, it bothered me so much. And this is also the same coach who is still fighting with his old quarterback in the media because I guess that's more important to him than coaching his team or not getting penalties on him.
I need to get up on this because this is the kind of drama that I should be enjoying.
I'll do the quick version now, but I'll send you some stuff later. But
okay, great. Tell me about this drama.
Russell Wilson was their quarterback a few years ago, and
I am vaguely familiar with that name.
Yes, and he just it's towards the end of his career. He's just not been great the last couple years, but it's just felt unexpected of Sean Payton calling him out in the media or making a comment that was clearly directed at him. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it just bothers me when it seems like you're fighting a personal battle like that when, I mean, just move on. And I just think that's a bad look for...
is this the coach and player that I hear about having a public breakup, basically?
Probably at one point. Yeah. I'll send you some links later.
I keep hearing people comparing someone's behavior to constantly dragging your ex in public for no reason.
We'll conference on that and we'll get back to that. But yeah, it's just,
okay.
I mean, it's just like, to me, it's like, you're a year or two removed from that. Like, why are you still talking about this situation?
Mm,
You're the head coach of a football team, not a gossip columnist or whatever.
all right, that makes sense.
Um, and this will kind of go into our big question thing when we get to it in a little bit. But Packers barely beat Arizona 2 weeks ago, and kind of the same thing. There's all these teams that, like the Packers, that I know they're okay, but every time I see them play, I'll see some good things from them. But I don't feel like you should be almost losing to the Cardinals right now. Like, um, I mean, and even with them beating the Steelers, it was kind of like they got outplayed for a half, and they outplayed the Steelers for a half. But it felt, again, this Packers, I don't trust them, and not because I'm a Bears fan or something. It's just, there just doesn't seem to be that, like, I don't know, like that overdrive to just put games away or to just dominate games. It seems like they flirt with disaster much too often for what looks to me like a team that should be better than what I see when I actually see them play.
Right. And the next game on the list is Vikings versus Chargers. That was that was Thursday. My only thoughts about that game were like, blowouts are boring.
Well, about to say,
it was 37-10, and like it got boring. I was like, great.
we're only gonna we're only gonna talk about a few games from this week, but I think that was the thing with starting with that game for this week 8 or whatever. There's so many games with like a 20-point differential, like that. It was just kind of a terrible week to watch football. Normally, I'll get some enjoyment out of, like, recaps, highlights, things like that. But so many of these games were
like the Bears and Ravens was another like awful one, because that was 30-16, and it was just like even though my team won, I was like also bored. Like, I was happy and bored.
Well, like the touchdowns that came, like only a few of them felt like, only a few of the touchdowns were because the Ravens. I mean, it felt so much like it was the Bears giving away points, and we'll get to that to a second, or maybe not giving away points, but just not being able to stop the Ravens and not being put in bad situations. But yeah, like just to hit on it real quick, here are some of the scores from last week: Patriots, Browns, 32-13. Dolphins, Falcons, 34-10, even though that was a bit of an upset. Even like an ugly game like Buccaneers Saints was 23-3. Broncos beat the Cowboys 44-24. Colts beat Titans 38-14. I mean, it's just so many games that just
and
were
like
not.
the Cowboys and Broncos was another one where like I was very happy the Broncos beat the shit out of the Cowboys, and I was like, I am happy the Cowboys are getting spanked, but also I'm bored.
Yeah, it just wasn't a week where I'm like, oh yeah, this is football. It was just like, this is like a bunch of blowouts, and I'm not in. You need a little bit of drama, and there was not a lot of drama in these games this week. And
last night, ultimately, the Packers Steelers game, like the Packers wound up 10 points ahead, but it was enough that like it was looking like the Steelers were gonna win for a while. Well, and then I was like, oh, holy shit, the Packers might be making my night tonight.
Well, and I'd say what even made that game a little bit boring as just a casual observer was, it was kind of a muddled first half. Steelers are up 16-7 or whatever. And even though the Packers put up 21 in the fourth quarter, it just, at a certain point, it just felt inevitable. And I guess that was the reason why, like, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that the Packers are putting together these drives and everything, but it just didn't feel like there was much stopping them at the same time. Like, the Steelers just couldn't do anything. There was no tension to it. It just seemed like, I had Jordan Love on my fantasy team, and once things got rolling, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be in good shape. Like it just didn't feel like much of a game, and I mean, it was 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals were the drives for the Steelers or the Packers. Or sorry, 2 field goals. Yeah, I got a little mixed up, but you get the idea. Just
Yeah.
but going back to, I know we're kind of mishmash right now, but like that was the thing with the Bears game to me was the Ravens ended up putting 30 points, but it never felt like it. And the Bears looked good to start off. They moved the ball down the field a bunch, but kind of like I mentioned earlier, once the game script for them started to get jumbled and they were in trouble, it just seemed like they couldn't do anything. I watched the recap again today, and I think the Bears were averaging 8 yards on third down, like 3rd and 8 was the average. And you're not going to win games like that. I'll save a better explanation for another episode, but there's a stat they use called success rate, which I'd forget. I'd have to get the specifics, but basically it's that you gain so many yards on first down, you gain so many yards on second down, and that's how they calculate it in the sense of if you get into 3rd and 2, that's success because that's a manageable third down. You can call about anything and things like that. The Bears were playing football that I don't know what their success rate for the game, but it was low because if you're in 3rd and 8, that is not no matter, you can be a great offense. And if you were in 3rd and 8 that often, you're not going to win games. Like it's just not tenable. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's a great team or a team with a good quarterback, like the Chiefs or, something like that. Like, yeah, maybe you can dig yourself out of that, but it's just not even what you want to be in if you're the Chiefs. And I wish I had the stat, but that's kind of been the difference for the Colts, a team that actually is the best team in the NFL right now, despite all my jokes about them. They get into third downs, but it's 3rd and 2, it's 3rd and 3. It's not an obvious passing down. You have options, and also the other part, you only have to gain 3 yards. But I mean, that's the two things. You get into those manageable situations. That's success because football's such a grind. Like, yeah, it's great when you get those chunk plays that are 25 yards or whatever, but when you can just manage drives and move the ball just, 3 or 4 yards each play, you put yourself in a position that you don't have to make miracles happen. Like, that's in every sport. Like, that is generally like how you actually win games is not these miracle plays by great players. Like, those are great to have, but when you create gimmies, when you get easy baskets in basketball, when you aren't trying to defy the odds every play and every drive with all these long conversions, you have a chance to win. But getting back to the point, the Bears kept on getting to 3rd and 8, and sometimes it was Caleb Williams' fault, sometimes it just was everything else going wrong and the Ravens defense doing its job, including a sack by former Marshall Thundering Herd defenseman Mike Green, which hurt me, but also at the same time I was glad to see his success. But you have to put yourself in situations to succeed, and the Bears aren't doing that. And probably the stat that should really horrify me as a Bears fan is the Caleb Williams has 9 passing touchdowns. Four of them came against the Dallas Cowboys, the most porous pass defense in the league. The other 5 are in 7 weeks of game, or 7 games this year. Like, there's so many problems with that offense, and it just seemed so apparent when you're looking at 3rd and 8 every other drive, and it just was clear the Bears weren't going to win. And somehow the Ravens scored 30 points, but it never felt like they were doing anything more than just slowly chipping away at the Bears.
Yeah. Like, so I figured like this past week we would get through talking about it pretty quick because it was just kind of a boring week of football. Like,
yeah.
Even though, like, I was happy with the outcome of most of the games I watched, I was still bored, which is, like, a weird feeling. One quick question. What do you mean by game script?
Basically that, these coaches will, have they'll have that big play sheet they're holding on the sideline. And essentially when things are going right, it's easy to pull a bunch of calls, or you just have all these options to go forward. But essentially, when people often say game script, it's also talking about, if we are doing things right, we're getting that, having that success rate and moving the ball, we're able to call the plays that we're good at. No one is good at 3rd and 9. Like, it's just like, yeah, you're going to have teams that have success, like, and maybe for a season, but it's just not sustainable. When you find yourself in a position that you're having to, try to score 21 points to get back in a game, you've gone up, the game script is against you, because you're not playing football to manage the game. You are desperately in a situation where you have to score points. You can't do the things that maybe work regularly for you. You really have to play football that's desperate, and trying to score 21 points in one half is doable, but every NFL game isn't 42 to whatever. Like, it's hard to do. And when you get off, when the game script's against you, it often means that you're just in situations where you're not likely to succeed. If that's 3rd and 8 and passing, you're in trouble. If you're a running back, the game script might go against you in those situations too, because instead of being able to run the ball, well, it's 2nd and 8, 3rd and 8, where we're having to keep on passing the ball. Just simply being it's more the idea that the game script is the way you want to manage the game in general. And when the game starts to get away from you, you're probably not doing the things that you actually are successful at. You're having to play desperate football at that point, and that's never good for any team.
All right, we have 1 minute. So let's end this and, do the thing.
All right, I'm going to go pee real quick.
Okay, bye. Where did my page go? All right, so now that we're back, we've covered the last 2 weeks of the games that we watched. I got to catch a little bit of the game that is happening right now, which is the Commanders versus the Chiefs, which is tied up at 0, but we're well into the 2nd quarter already, so it's kind of an exciting nothing, you know what I mean?
It's a defensive battle.
Yeah, it's nothing has happened, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So, now that we've talked about our intro stuff, we've talked about the last week of stuff. So now let's get into this kind of philosophical question that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
So introduce us to that. Well, actually,
go ahead.
Let me introduce the question and then say what little bit I actually can contribute, and then I'll hand it over to you. So your big question is, are there any great NFL teams this year? And that kind of got me thinking, because I've had similar conversations about, say, actors or musicians / bands, where it's what is your definition of great? Is it just skill, or is there other things? Is the thing that makes a movie star just their talent, or is there also some sort of unspoken thing? So what is it that makes a great NFL team? Is it just performance record, or is there some kind of X factor that has to be included with the record? So tell me how you are defining a great team.
For me, it's a little bit of both, because when I'm looking at this season, let me just go with this. Buccaneers, Colts, they've been good this year. Colts are what 6-1, 7-1. The Bucks are 6-2, but while at least the Colts, and just to bring it up, points differential is just simply how many more points you've scored than your opponent, or vice versa. The Colts are the only team that's kind of an outlier, outscoring their opponents 116 points this year. But it feels like the rest of the NFL, like even with some of the other good teams like 5-2, Rams and Seahawks, they're both kind of around 60 points above their opponents. But the Bucks, they've only outscored their opponents by 19 points. Like I said, there's a couple there that are in the middle of the pack, like the Lions, Kansas City. But I guess that's when it comes down to a little bit more of the philosophical part. We saw last year, the Minnesota Vikings played really well, but once you got Sam Darnold into the playoffs, he kind of became, or late in the year and then in the playoffs, he kind of became the quarterback that we had seen before. Just good, but not great. Just maybe can't handle those big moments. That's kind of where I sit on the Colts. We watched for 6 years Daniel Jones not being a quarterback that impressed us with his arm. He was a good scrambler and some things like that, but ultimately no one was impressed. No one, when he joined the Colts this offseason, said, there's that piece that is going to turn this into a winning franchise or a winning team. No one was saying that. It was just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe he'll beat out Richardson in camp, but that's it. Like, most people thought it was just going to be a little bit of a mess on who would actually start because no one thought he was that much better than Anthony Richardson. So that's the thing, is the Colts are clearly the best team in the NFL right now. Like, I got my jokes and all that, but there's no argument against them not being the best team. But is it going to be like the Vikings last year where there's just those players that don't have the it factor? And I hate reducing it to intangible things, but we just see that some players can't handle either the pressure of the situation, or that when you get to the end of the season and playoff time, the other team can coach their team up in such a way that's going to stop all those things that were working for you. It could work in the regular season that just aren't going to work in the playoffs. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, there's the teams like the Steelers and the Buccaneers, but they're not really blowing out their opponents. Or if you're the Steelers, you've dropped 2 in a row now, and arguably the teams that maybe, well, the Packers are good and they lost in Lambeau, but I just, outside the Colts, there's not a team that I think is so much better than their opponents and who they've beaten. Even the Bills have been pretty good. They basically have the teams that they have beat have had terrible records. So it's just, I'm not impressed. And it's such a hater thing to say, but like, I'm either having to say that, there's all these teams that just don't stand out enough for me to believe in them, like the Broncos. And then on the other end of it, it's like the Chiefs and the Broncos going into tonight have about the same points differential. So statistically,
the Chiefs just scored, by the way.
Okay, so now maybe they're a little bit more, but but like, they're not so.
I was like on top of the world for a minute while it was like 0-0 and nothing was happening, and now I'm sad.
But yeah, they're 4-3. Like, the only reason we don't think that they're a mediocre to bad team is, they've won 2 Super Bowls. They've played in some more. Like Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's the only reason we're not completely dismissing the Chiefs. But statistically speaking, they're not doing anything that's all that exceptional. And like I said, on the flip side of that is the Colts, that I will love if I'm wrong about Daniel Jones, in the sense of I am all for being proven wrong in the good way, that, he is actually a better quarterback than 6 years of evidence, showed us. That would be a fun story. That's where I want to be wrong about my opinions. But I just feel like we're going to get to the end of the end of the regular season, the playoffs, and as teams can, turn up the pressure and they can focus on one team a week, that they're just going to get exposed, or just some of those bad habits that he hasn't shown. And you know it's just, that's where I sit on this season right now. Like, I guess I'm picking the Colts right now, but I got my reasons to think that something's going to fall apart down the stretch. That was basically my big thought. Was this feels like one of those transition seasons where maybe almost anyone could win the Super Bowl. I mean, outside of the randomness of football on top of it, it just, it's not like last year where, once we kind of got the playoffs, Eagles and Chiefs, and that's the Super Bowl we ended up with. But I don't think anyone before the playoffs thought that was, going to be a surprising, Super Bowl once a playoff field was set. Where whatever the playoffs would be today, like, yeah, I guess I would pick the Colts, but I would not say that was any real certainty. I would not put money on it. I just think it's one of those years where, for whatever reason, too many teams are in flux and no one's really standing out. And, maybe you're the Chiefs, where, it's the salary cap situation that makes it hard to build a team. And that's the same thing for the Eagles. And I think part of the reason they're not as good this year. But I mean, it's like with we talked about with Washington. Like, is there going to be these teams that overachieve a little bit in a vacuum, but maybe aren't that good? I'm not convinced that we have a great team that everyone should be like, yeah, that's going to be who wins the Super Bowl, and not just sound ridiculous saying so.
Yeah, because, like, as someone who, like, is not super well versed on, like, everybody's records or anything, like, it doesn't feel like anyone is standing out to me. Like, I am not noticing an overall opinion about, like, who the favorites for, because I feel like this far into the season, we're usually, like, kind of speculating a little bit about who might be headed to the Super Bowl. And I feel like the teams that we are hearing about the most is not even from what they're doing this year. It's like the expectations that are carried over from their performance last year.
Yeah, I would say, like, that's the only reason we think the Chiefs might still be a playoff threat. And they probably will be, because they do seem to be getting better as the season goes on. But, I mean, we were talking about is, Mahomes going to lose 3 straight for the first time in his career. Like, there is a reason to. It feels like a season where sometimes when people hate on teams, it really does just feel like hating. Like, there's not really a great reason to, or it's my thing. A lot of times when people make predictions, like, if the only benchmark is winning the Super Bowl, it's very easy to be right about any team. Like, yeah, the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl last year. Okay, but they made the Super Bowl, had a pretty good year. Like, I don't think you saying that a team's not going to win at all is a bold, like, it's just not an impressive prediction to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a high.
Because only one team can win.
Yeah, it's such a high standard for success. And like I said, I just feel like this year, when you're saying that, like, any of these teams that you're either picking or not picking, like, there's the obvious flaws that we see that it won't surprise me if they show up, especially when it matters. And I'm not saying that from, like I said, like, the Buccaneers. I like Baker Mayfield. I want him to win. But if you're winning all these one-score games, that is not sustainable success. Like, it's great that you can do it and run with it when you can, but no one should be looking at the Buccaneers and those wins and say, like, I think it does say something to, they won't be rattled by those situations as far as, like, the psychology or whatever. But it's not, good teams generally put other teams away and do it consistently. And we're not seeing that with a lot of teams, or even the ones with good records. It just feels like they're not beating. It doesn't seem like there's that obvious juggernaut on each side of the conferences that feels like the easy prediction. Even, like, I guess that's the thing, is, like, even last year, like, if you're picking Eagles early on, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Where this year, I don't know who that easy team in the NFC is to pick. Maybe the Lions, as they stay healthy, but yeah, just I don't know. Normally, I have a lot more confidence in my opinions after 8 weeks of football. I don't this year, and that's fine. Like, there's parts of it that are fun this year with that, but um, I don't think that anybody making grand predictions can say with a lot of confidence, both for statistical reasons and, like I said, a little bit of like with Daniel Jones. Like, we saw him play not great football for a while. Why do we suddenly believe he knows how to play great football? Love to be wrong if I'm wrong about this, but that's a good reason to be skeptical of them right now. That being said, they're the only team that's putting other teams away. So I guess really until they don't do that, I guess pick the Colts to keep on winning.
All right, so the big question is, are there any great teams this year? And it seems the big answer is nope.
Yeah. Like I said, it's maybe the Colts, but I can't say anything with confidence. And that's just the way it is sometimes. Like, I don't think that's not to dismiss the Colts. It's just, it's a weird year. That's my feeling on it. But I'm sure I'll be wrong about that, like all my other opinions. So when we come back next week, we'll just talk about how I got everything wrong and I'm an idiot.
All right. I planned to have more than one thing on this, like, questions list. One I was gonna add, like, in the segment that we'll eventually have a clever title for, where it's like things Ben had to explain to me. I was like, the first week or so I was gonna ask what a sack was, but then my mom ended up defining it, so I learned
it's a burlap bag.
Oh, you're funny. So a sack is when the quarterback is tackled before he is able to get rid of the ball.
Yes.
And there was one that I just thought of, like, yes. Oh, explain extra points. Let's talk about that. Because I saw one. There was one last night that confused me. Because a touchdown was made, and then it seemed like there was a second touchdown right after that, and I didn't realize that it could happen that way. I thought the only way to get an extra point was to kick it.
Okay, so I forget when they added the 2-point conversion back into it, but
Thank you. I forgot what the name for that was.
Yeah.
2-point conversion is so after a touchdown, you can get an extra point by kicking a field goal.
Yeah,
or going for this 2-point conversion.
Yeah, I think I'd have to double check, but I think the rule is basically, and they also moved the line for where you kick from on an extra point back to about the 25 or whatever it is now. But essentially, if you go for 2, you do line up at the 2.5 yard line like you always did for extra points. But they did move the spot back for an extra point kick or an extra point field goal is further back now. That's why they line up further for those. But that's just simply, like I said, I'd had to check the years and everything. But yeah, for a while you could only kick. I think the history was you could do 2-point conversion, then they got rid of it, and then they added it back. But point being that, you kick the extra point for an easy 1 point, hopefully, but you can go for 2 to try to get yourself back in games by trying to make it from the end zone from 2.5 yards away, which is both easier said than done, but coaches should probably be a bit more aggressive about it, especially when the math dictates that you really should be going for 2 to maintain the lead or whatever.
I think the reason I noticed it for the first time, I guess, because obviously 2-point conversion is not like a new thing. I think the reason I noticed it is because it was the thing that brought Green Bay into the lead.
Yeah. Last
night was they made the touchdown and that brought them to 20, and then they got these 2 extra points, and that's when they got 22 to 18 or something. At that point, I don't remember what it was, but it helped them have a slightly more solid lead than being 1 touchdown ahead.
Yeah, and I would say that's the thing is normally you do just kick it because it's very easy to get 1 point, and it just I mean, if you get in a bunch of games that are 24-21, it's pretty obvious that, getting the 2 point conversion may not always be that big of an advantage. And especially with, if your success rate is, let's even say 50-50, you really have to be better than 50-50 to think that you should go for it every time. And, obviously it's a little bit harder than that. And I think that's just essentially it. It's just, it makes sense most of the time just to kick the points because,
oh no, I think the Chiefs just scored again based on my mom screaming. Or something just happened.
About to say, who's your mom's team, by the way?
The Commanders, obviously.
Yes. Oh, okay. I will say just a quick Google, and it goes to a website, at least that I trust, or at least that's where the logo looks to be from. It's just under 50% is roughly the historic 2 point conversion rate. So that's why you generally kick the field goal, because if you are even at 50%, if you make one, if you convert to and then don't convert on the next, yeah, you're back to 14 points or whatever, but that kind of defeated the purpose of risking it. You really would have to be closer to 60% for a coach to say, yeah, we really need to go for it more often.
And what the score is can kind of tell you like how they got those points, because a touchdown is 6 points, right?
Yes.
And then if you kick for the extra points, then you get 7, which is what the Chiefs have done, which is why it's currently 7-0. So if you get a touchdown, it's 6, and then if you go for the 2 point conversion, then you get 8.
Yes. Well, yeah, you get 2 more. So
why is a touchdown 6 points? Is that something you can answer?
Not right now. I mean, I'd have to look it up. I mean, I imagine just at a certain point they decided that, because like I said, football is a derivative of rugby. I assumed that it was the idea that, getting to the end zone is twice as hard as kicking it through the post at some point. I mean, I assume that's generally the thinking. Oh, and I did pull up an article from the summer. Apparently, the 2 point conversion rate is actually at a 15-year career low going into this season. So that's also why that
might be another reason why I wasn't noticing it happen as much, because it just hasn't been happening as much.
Yeah, like you're only going to see it in a game where a team is down by 14 late, or essentially down by more than 14 late and needs to close that gap. But I mean, I definitely get why as someone getting back into football would have missed that, because it doesn't make sense to go for 2 unless you're in a situation where you may not be able to get the points otherwise. So yeah. I would say I think it's just simple as that. When the success rate last year was 41%, you generally, and that's the thing too, I think that hurts teams a little bit. Like, you kind of know. Well, I mean, I guess because you got to trot out the regular offense, not the field goal unit. But at the same time, like when you're playing a game and you're having to get points back like that, things probably haven't been going your way. That's why you're down by 16 points. Like if things were going your way, you would be in the lead. So I guess it's not too surprising that the team struggling from behind is going to be unsuccessful on these 2 point conversions that are just naturally difficult to score on.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I'll do a little research and we'll get a little. Why is it 6? Why is it 3? Why are needs?
Because even when I played basketball, it never made sense to me. Like, why is this 2 points and why is this line 3 points? Like, why is the basic one not 1 point? Like the basic most common thing you do. Why is that not just 1 point? Because it's like free throws are 1 point or something.
I would say, I imagine for basketball, that was it. It's like, well, free throws are too easy, so maybe I wouldn't be surprised if it started off at a point.
If it's just based on difficulty.
It is based off difficulty, but I'd imagine that it was like, well, baskets are at 1 point. Well, we're going to put in the free throw because you guys keep slapping the guy as he goes up, but it needs to be less than, a regular basket, but it'd be ridiculous to make it half a point. So let's just make it a, worth 1 point, and regular baskets are worth 2 points. and then somebody starts making it from longer, and we feel like we should reward that, so that's worth 3. And then MTV added a 50-point basket above the rim for jocks and whatever their jock jam thing they had was called back in the day.
Rock and Jock or something like that.
Yes, you nailed it. Yeah, I remember.
Wow,
when they did...
memory unlocked.
Yes, I
remember that. Okay.
I remember when they would have a 50-point basket, like I forget how many feet in the air above the regular rim.
Because it was literally like musicians and athletes playing together. Oh, wow, okay.
Maybe that will be a summer episode for us.
This is going to be like, I'm going to take a trip down the YouTube memory lane. I miss dumb competitions like that. Do you remember when reality TV was like dumb and fun? We're tied up. Fuck yeah. I'm happy again.
I prefer when...
I say that now. I will be threatening suicide again by the end of the night. I guarantee it.
But I definitely...
That actually kind of goes back to our conversation earlier in this episode about like kind of taking things too seriously or like hating on everything. Like, yeah, I joke about like my team making me want to kill myself, but like funny, you know? Like if I'm ever at a point where like I am actually suicidal based on the performance of my football team, it is time to get me the kind of help that like you know, it's like jacket with really long sleeves time.
It doesn't rhyme for a sports team, but I always think of the Oasis lyric, please don't put your life in the hands of a rock and roll band. We'll have to find a better rhyme for sports, but that's the line I think of generally.
Yeah, and you know, like I'm a millennial and we often make jokes about how little our lives mean to us. We don't have much to live for.
Well, if the Chiefs score here, we'll be back on watching you.
The last thing I have on here for you to define, which is one of those things that like I think I know, but I need outside conversation or confirmation to like be sure, is can you define blitz, please?
It's just simply when someone other than the lineman up front run at the quarterback. The idea just being that, let's just say you're running a 4-3, which is, 4 linemen and 3 linebackers. You can bring a blitz from any of those 3 linebackers, and that's harder for the offense to manage because if you got 4 guys on the line, we're just going to keep it with a 4-3 to keep it simple. You know where those 4 guys are, and that what you need to do to maybe control them in the play. What makes a blitz something that you do in football is you could bring it from all these different places. Like, yes, we'll see the linebackers or the cornerback or the safety, maybe encroaching up to the line or something, but it's a lot harder to scheme a play, when you don't fully know where the pressure is going to come from. And that's why sometimes you bluff at a blitz because maybe you bring up 2 linebackers so that they have to consider both of them as threats, but maybe you only blitz one of them. And, that is inherently harder for the linemen to deal with because they don't know exactly where that pressure is coming from. Obviously, especially the NFL level, the amount of planning and scheming and everything else they do, they are often prepared for it. But it's the whole idea that it's a surprise of where you're going to end up bringing that pressure from. Just simply because it's another body outside of the lineman who essentially their job is to sack the quarterback on every play.
Mm-hmm. So it was one of those ones where I was like going based on like context clues of like, I think I understand what this means. And I was doing like etymology shit in my hand. I was like, well, blitz is German for lightning, and like the Blitzkrieg, the lightning war, it was, unexpected thing. So I'm sure it means when something unexpected is happening. So like, would you say that it's kind of the opposite of the QB sneak, kind of, where it's like, or is that what we called it?
Yeah. Well, I would say like,
when the quarterback is the one that runs for it, like, because you don't really expect the quarterback to be doing that. So like it's kind of the opposite of that in that like
in that
the
sense,
unexpected person is coming after the quarterback.
Yeah, especially if it's actually a QB sneak, because I think that's the thing is a lot of times when we call it a QB sneak, but it's often more of just the QB keeping it, like in the sense of it's a goal line at the 1, like we all know there's a good chance so and so is going to jump over the pile as a quarterback, but yeah, it's just more the idea that typically the quarterback is not the ball carrier in most offenses. So yeah, I mean it's about deception. I mean that's so much about.
So it's kind of like the defensive equivalent.
Yeah, I mean like
rather than like opposite.
I mean, so much about the way you play defense, especially at the NFL level, is how you disguise things, because these guys, if they know where you're at, can do so much to like prevent, you adjust the blocking, you adjust, you make an audible and, tell a running back to pick up somebody. But ultimately, when you're able to disguise what you're doing and rotate guys around or whatever, that's how you are able to, really make plays and all that. Like, there was a play in the Bears and Ravens that you make the cornerback decide whether he's going to drop further back, but you keep him honest by dropping a receiver in the flat in front of him so that he has to respect the guy in front of him. But what you're really trying to do is not throw to that running back who's open right there. You're hoping that you isolate that cornerback kind of in a no man's land so that behind him your wide receiver can get to it. And that's just part of the disguising. And you're trying to, it's great when you can just run the ball down somebody's throat or just do what you want, but part of doing that is just setting up the play to create those situations where the defense or the offense doesn't know what's going on. I mean, it's just like in any sport, but especially football with the way you can scheme, it's just simply adding questions and making it difficult for the other team to know exactly what you're doing. And it's, that's all it really is. And, blitz is just bringing somebody from, anywhere other than the 4 linemen or however many linemen you line up on the line, obviously.
All right, cool.
Anything else?
No, I think we've covered it. Like I am at a point where like I know more than I think I know, but it's going to be a while before I am like confident in any of that knowledge.
Well, and I think like especially I think if you like have played Madden all your life or things like that, like, yeah, like so much of it is just secondhand because, you're doing that or whatever. But if you're just a casual fan or someone who's not, doing things that would require in any way to use half of this verbiage or whatever, it's like, yeah, like my mom watches a lot of football, but if I told her to define, setting the edge, like, she knows it she would know it when I showed her a clip. She'd be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But like, I don't think that she would inherently be like, oh yeah, that is, your defensive lineman, essentially controlling the line of scrimmage and in some way, trying to dictate, where the play is going and all that. Whereas, she sees it on a play, she would understand it immediately, but like I don't think she just has that in the back of her head ready to go right now.
Right. So that actually, okay, this is going to seem like a strange association, but I was listening to a podcast today called It's Probably Not Aliens, and it was like not the most recent episode, but the one before that, and they're talking about like reports of angels really being aliens. Like it's a show that like criticizes ancient aliens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They are not believing in aliens. But there was a point where one of the hosts asks like what the average Christian believes in regard to angels. Like, does the average Christian believe in them like as literal beings? And that makes me wonder, like, so I just had this thought of like, what does the average football fan actually know?
No, I think that would actually be a good question because, like like I said, my mom has watched the Steelers my entire life. She watches plenty of football, but how often does she actually need to use that vernacular when talking to anybody? She's just happy to watch the Steelers play. Like, she probably knows it when she sees it, but I mean, I guess it's the thing. It's like, I think there's also a big difference between not like an actual ignorance or not knowing of something, and then just something where, that's what you call it. Like, it when you see it, but you just haven't had to engage in such a way you really needed to bother to define it.
I was just kind of wondering, like, so where do I actually sit in terms of, like, the knowledge that the average fan holds?
I honestly would just assume average, because, like I said, I think a lot more of it is vernacular and that feeling, a little bit intimidating than, a lot of it really being, something that would, like, impress anybody. Like, I think that's the thing is, like, there's a lot of things where just knowing the verbiage will make you sound pretty smart, but, it's not like it's a crazy concept by any means. It's just more of, have you used this enough times that it comes off easily for you as opposed to something you think about?
Yeah, and that's why, like, one of my visions for this show is that, like, we kind of define things a lot, even things that you and I, like, do know. Like, maybe kind of repeatedly define certain things, because I do want to be accessible to people who don't necessarily know all the terminology and, like, all of the politics and all of the, like, behind-the-scenes drama of the NFL, because, like, sports guys it can kind of seem gatekeeping. Like, there's the sports guys who are fully gatekeeping. Like, if you don't have an encyclopedic knowledge, you don't get to call yourself a fan. We're not talking about those guys. But there are a lot of sports people who it kind of feels like gatekeeping, like, because, like, it feels like you have to have a certain amount of knowledge before you're allowed to, like, partake in the conversation, or, like, just the amount of terminology can seem kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, like, my idea for this has always been, like, I want to be friendly to people who don't know anything.
Yeah, and I think especially football is something where, like, a lot of other sports, there's a certain simplicity to it, even though almost every sport, once you actually get into it, is, like, amazingly complicated. But
yeah, like the phrase "inside baseball," like, makes it seem like baseball is super complicated, but most sports get kind of complicated when you get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, but I think football, even on the surface level, is a lot more complicated, just because you have essentially 22 different positions in one way or another. It's not like baseball, even, where it's there's names for different positions and everything, but it's kind of the same idea for all the guys on the field playing defense, catch ball, stop ball. Whereas, with football, it's like, certain positions have to think, it's just, there's so many different ways I feel like that football creates kind of a tougher learning curve, just because there's just the way it's set up with plays and everything like that. It just makes it a lot more complicated, a lot more about strategy. Whereas to a certain extent, in basketball, it's like put as long as you put in the basket, like, that's what matters. Where you have to, work the ball down the field, and the scoring is much more of a exception in a sport like that than in, like, basketball, or it's just, there's a different rhythm to football, and I think that's why it's sometimes intimidating. But a lot of times, I do think it is really just, if we use these terms more often in general, most people would just get them, because there's not too many things that I think are overly complicated, as much as they build on each other and create something that is incredibly complicated.
Yeah. All right, we are just about out of time for this week. If you like what we're doing here, go check out our Patreon and maybe throw us a couple bucks. Help us get out of the shackles of Zoom's 40-minute time limits. We had to have 3 separate Zoom calls tonight. And if you do join our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/ehmkay, there will be a link in the episode description. If you join our Patreon, you will have access to patron-exclusive episodes where we discuss football movies, the first of which will be Remember the Titans, which I believe we are recording tomorrow, ?
We're going to try to.
Did you finish watching it?
Yes.
Okay, so we are one step closer to actually recording our first patron-exclusive episode, so theoretically, it will be done by the time you're listening to this. Are we good to go? Any last words?
No.
All right.
Like I said, we'll figure out what I got wrong next week and what we learned.
Alrighty. Alright, that's it for us, guys. See you next time. We'll think of a cool sign-off one of these days.
We'll get to it.
Alright, bye.
Bye.